Hello, welcome to Bipolar Buddies. My name is Michel, and today we've got a very special edition of Bipolar Buddies. Why? Because the buddies are not bipolar people. They have an other pathology, which is borderline, which is ADHD, and maybe others. We'll see. And why do we invite people who are not like us, I would say? The first thing is that I noticed that among bipolar, we tend to compare ourselves, like type 1, type 2, just compare the effects, the origins, and so on. And I thought it's very interesting to get knowledge and inspiration from people with other disorders, and make it in the form of a battle, a gently battle. Seems also nice because actually I never saw it really this way. So to battle today, I invited Irina and Dimitri. And I would like maybe first that they introduce themselves and their pathology, and then we'll get to their journey. So maybe Irina, if you want to start.
I somehow had the suspicion I'm going to have to go first.
I'm French, huh? Galant.
No. Thank you, Michel. Thanks for having me here. My name is Irina. I am the borderline. Um,
It doesn't define you.
well, no, it doesn't, but that's why we're here. That's what we are here to talk about. I got diagnosed approximately a year ago, actually. So I'm considered late diagnosed.
Mhm.
And it's been a hell of a journey. Before the diagnosis, definitely. And now, as I have gone through the symptoms and definitions, there was a big part of me that wasn't accepting of a lot of the symptoms.
Mhm.
So that was kind of a struggle. But according to diagnostic criteria, to be recognized as a borderline personality disorder individual, one has to have or exhibit frantic efforts to avoid abandonment, unstable or intense personal relationship, identity disturbance, impulsivity, recurrent suicidal or self-harm behavior, in my case, self-harm, instability, chronic feelings of loneliness, inappropriate or intense anger, and intense dissociation.
Wow.
So out of those, I meet eight.
8.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, you start with a pretty large advance on Earth with so many criteria, fitting so many symptoms.
Yeah.
Dimitri, do you think you can reach this?
Yeah, let me just go on Wikipedia and name list all of the symptoms.
I literally had to re-Google it today because I've been taught to look at the disorder in a different way than the criteria, but I thought it's important to list them.
Yes, sure. So,
All right.
Dimitri,
I'm Dimitri, the ADHD one, and glad to join the conversation. We've already had a few chats and we know each other well, so I think what makes this very interesting is that in comparing the way our moods shift and everything and how we cope with different situations, it really comes out that even though there's a lot of overlap in the way we react to things, the reasons behind them are very different. Now, my ADHD was also diagnosed very late. I treated my insomnia my entire life, but that wasn't really the root cause, so it didn't really work. Because insomnia, if induced by ADHD, or partly at least, is treated very, very differently from regular insomnia. And I think must have been maybe 4 years ago, approximately, that I went to see my GP and asked for a test on attention deficit. I didn't even suspect it could be ADHD because, yeah, the common misconception is that ADHD people are always hyper. They're more like always tired. And when they get excited or when they're extremely tired, they get hyper. So those moments, yeah, your V12 engine goes on, and after a while, after yeah, maybe an hour or two, you go down, and that lasts way longer. So I didn't suspect it. But 1 hour with a psychiatrist, he said, okay, maybe we should start at ADHD, and it turned out that the H was where I scored highest, the hyperactivity. So yeah, I think 120% ADHD. And while it doesn't define me, if you research it a bit, it does explain a lot of your identity. So that's something I think some people may struggle with. Where am I in this whole scheme? Because most of what I do is has been researched and is part of the ADHD scheme. So, but we still are unique, and
Okay.
this must be there.
Okay, thank you. I like the 120% you mentioned because I'm a little bit tired of the 100% you hear everywhere. Um, for me, I'm bipolar type 1. I'm diagnosed since my 17, so a very, very long time. And well, bipolar, it's a mood disorder. It takes you from very low lows to high highs. It's shift, and it can last, depending on the people, from several days, weeks to several months. In my case, several months. When you get depressed, you get really, really depressed. 20% of the bipolar people, they tend to think or commit suicide. And when you go high, hypomania, mania, um, up to delusion, to delirium, even psychos, which I know. I had 3 very big episodes with this. So that's in a nutshell bipolar. The interesting thing, by the way, is that this is a mood disorder where they say that borderline is a personality disorder, and that ADHD is a behavior disorder. So that may be interesting to share with you. Maybe we could get to the, let's say, our, let's say, common journeys. Irina, could you tell a bit more about how it came and how it affects your life or benefits to your life?
You mean the disorder
The
or the
disorder, yes.
diagnosis? Um, I honestly still struggle with with conceptualizing how it came.
Mm-hmm.
My psychologist and psychiatrist claim it came from childhood trauma and neglect.
Mm-hmm.
But if I look back at my childhood, I don't really relate to that. Yes, okay, I did have a emotionally unavailable parent, but I can't seem to understand that, I had food and I went to school and I had friends, and I can't really relate the fact that my parent was a little bit unemotional to how completely messed up my head is now. And I think that is going to be part of my journey. So I personally really struggle with how it came to be, and it is quite a severe one, apparently, in me.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
am the subtype quiet BPD, which means that a lot of my symptoms are directed inwards. So the anger is inwards, the impulsivity is inwards. It's really self-harm and putting oneself down, not believing in oneself, not having identity, like complete lack of identity. Um, so when the diagnosis came last year, I was a little bit afraid, to be honest, because BPD is linked to anger.
Mm-hmm.
And anger is not something that I recognize in myself. To me, anger is reactive, but below the anger, there is always a primary emotion. And that emotion is either fear or hurt.
Mm.
So when I was taught that society and the medical community expects of me to be an angry person, I was very shocked. And now I've come to understand that I am a very angry person. It's just I'm angry at myself. And therefore I get very harsh. I tend to exhibit quite bad self-harming behaviors. I tend to get obsessive. I tend to have compulsions that are linked with self-harm.
Okay.
So I'm still kind of trying to navigate, where am I going with this? What can I change? Because it does have to do with emotion regulation, but I
Mm-hmm.
have, because I've lived with it for such a long time without help, I've built very, very strong coping mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
that seem to be unhealthy.
Mm.
So now I kind of have to unlearn everything that I've learned to keep myself together. I'm starting to unlearn it. So that creates confusion.
Do you have examples?
Work.
Mm,
Like I don't have identity for myself. If I think of myself, I think of my work. I
mm,
don't exist. If my work is removed from me, I don't exist.
mm.
I can't explain how there's this overwhelming sense of emptiness that there's nothing.
And if I may ask, how do you view identity through your eyes when you look at others?
I seem to be able to take what people think of themselves for truth. Of course, I attach my own emotions and feelings to it. So, you're funny and smart, and I attach these labels to other people, and
Mm,
then I also take things that people think of themselves. But when it comes to me, it's just blank. It's just
mm,
empty.
That's what you need now to work on. Because I
Yeah.
noticed it, I noticed we don't know each other since so long. By the way, I want to say I'm Dimitri's father, because in case people, because Dimitri said we know each other, yes, that's true. But okay. Um, um, uh, when you seem to have difficulties to receive compliments, for instance, it's
Yeah.
something like, no, let's not talk about it. Just is is this the emptiness you need to fulfill, and is it part of the uh, changing patterns that you were mentioning, that you need to do things differently? Do you work actively on this?
Yeah. Yeah, for the compliments, definitely, because I have this thing where if I don't feel it, it's not true.
mm,
So when you give me a compliment, I don't internalize it because I don't actively think of myself like that. So my brain goes into, oh, this person is saying this because they want to use you, or because they want to
Mm,
mock you, or because they need something from you. It's never taken as
mm,
it's the truth, because it's not the truth in my mind.
no.
And yeah, that is definitely something I'm actively working on, and it's very, very hard. It's detaching detaching my self-worth from my work is excruciating.
mm,
Also, because you both know I absolutely adore my job.
Mm,
It is very difficult to tell myself, okay, you're not gonna work now, you're gonna, I don't know, sit on the couch and read a book. Because my brain goes, if you sit and do something for yourself, you're wasting time that could be put in the thing that you're good at, work.
is it work, Irina, or is it a kind of mission passion, because you work in education?
Yeah. Okay, mission
So
passion, but
yeah. Still,
in my case, is work. Yeah.
it's work.
Yeah. Do you guys struggle with identity? Because that's a big thing for borderline. That is probably the biggest issue.
Dimitri, do you struggle?
I used to a lot. I think for me, there was a journey that was very, let's say, very linear, went up every time. Every time I kind of passed another obstacle, and as I grew older, I got to structure things better and better. I think the ADHD as a behavioral disorder is very dependent on your situation, and on your self-worth. I always believed I was different from people when I was young, and I would be, the hyper kid in class. I would be the one that didn't didn't feel the emotions that others did as strongly. And I struggled with that because that meant that I think as a teenager, even though there was a lot of anger also at myself, I think that's a very similar thing to what you said. But anger at the little things that you couldn't do, not at the bigger ones. ADHD comes with, a lack of dopamine, meaning that certain things that people should empathize with, you either don't or you do a lot less. Things shock you less, you hurt less, you feel less cold, less heat, less. And I think that kind of, even though I was a whirlpool of hormones as a teenager and emotion, I think that did make me feel like I was unfeeling, like I didn't have any emotions. I felt that for a long time. And I think that's linked to also not having a clear identity. I think the second part that attributes to that is the fact that I could and would create personas of myself to suit other people. I would always be whatever I felt the other person needed me to be to get whatever I needed at the time, acknowledgement, friendship, or whatnot. I remember wanting to be part of something. I'd, do weird stuff. I'd eat somebody else's chewing gum in school because, that made me a bit create, I think, the persona of somebody who's it's a bit off, but yeah, I didn't want to be popular per se, but I also didn't want to be normal or insignificant, I guess. And in my 20s, that changed. I moved around a lot. I did move to Japan when I was 16 for a year, and I think that's a big part of my identity as well now. The way that they live and the way I would like to live, it had a very calming effect. But it was only when I was maybe 21, moving to Paris or just back from Paris, that I started to create an identity that was purely me. And that was more linked to the fact that I just didn't want to lie anymore, or at least, create illusions around myself. I remember I had big epiphany moment and figured, like, why do you put yourself into difficult situations by, faking things, by lying about things, and by, not being direct? Because being direct can be hurtful, but it can also, the repercussions of being direct and honest and are just, way less than the long-term effects of putting a mask on. So I stopped doing that and I became extremely direct with everyone. Very, very honest, maybe brutally so. I made quite a few people cry. I think I've nuanced it since then, but that did free me up to be just myself. And people have always told me that I and that always surprised me that I don't really change for anyone, which I think from that time I didn't really anymore. I don't change my voice to be cool. There's not an ounce of machism in me. I'm a know-it-all, yes, but but I'm always just me, I guess. Whether it's different moods doesn't really matter. And 30s got even better because I gained confidence in, I had these, pillars. I knew I could find work. I knew I could find a house. Of course, shit happens sometimes, excuse my French. But yeah, I think through that journey and through ADHD does allow you to be very observant when it comes to others, always curious. And what it did in my case is that every time I was envious of somebody's ability to do something or my lack thereof, I would work on that and end up being better at that than at other things. And I think I'm very lucky in that sense. Um, it got me, it turned me into, someone who when I realized that actually likes a problem because it can turn into a bigger solution than the problem, than the level of bad that the problem actually was. Um, and so yeah, in my 30s, I refined it, and I had so much life experience that I think, yeah, it creates at least this view of yourself that isn't, yeah, that's just not set in stone. I think we're all very fluid, and identity is not one single thing. It's
No.
a momentary me, I guess, that keeps evolving. So I think, Irina, when you mean identity, I think it's very good to dig into that and see, you know, what is lacking for you to feel like you have no identity, because you have an identity in our eyes, in everybody's eyes.
Yes.
We know, but we all have different identities in our brains for you. I don't actively think about, am I funny? Am I this? Am I that? I know some people think I'm funny, not many.
Mm.
A lot of people think I'm annoying. Yeah, you're borderline, so it's natural.
But Dimitri, did you, when you got your diagnosis and your medication, we'll talk about it. Did did you did it help you further in, let's say, building yourself,
Mm, mm.
knowing and treating?
I've never wanted to take medication because, as you know,
Mhm.
Michel, I got well, I knew of your case, so I never even knew it was ADHD, but also I didn't want to take pills. I got prescribed antidepressants at age 15, I think, because at the time it was just bad in my skin, and but I never took them and never really wanted to use that as a solution for fear, I think, mostly of changing too much. You can be as unhappy as you like, but wanting to taking pills with the risk of, especially if you're in a creative job, the risk of flattening your identity or personality was scary to me. And of course, I tried a lot of things for insomnia, but yeah, if you don't know you have ADHD, you don't know that you should be taking the opposite. In some cases, some people do sleep better with sleep medication, but most people don't. They need uppers to sleep. And the medication changed a lot of things, many, many things. I think especially in work, of course, it cured my insomnia in a way that I've never needed much sleep, but I can now I sleep more soundly, and I don't spend 2 hours even trying to get to sleep. I just go to bed when I feel being sleepy and
Mm.
being tired are two very different things to an ADHD person.
Yeah.
Um, you can be tired as you like. It's not going to help you sleep. You
Yeah.
need to be in pre-sleep mode. And the pills changed that, and they solved one of those things I was very envy of, is that especially when I watched my mom working away 8 hours in front of a screen without changing and on one task, and she could do that for I couldn't even do that for 3 minutes. Always thrived on having 36 different projects and doing them all at the same time. Now I've slowed down. The pills are called lisdexamfetamines, which are amphetamines. So the normal person will not, or a non-ADHD person will not sleep all night if they take them. So it's a very easy way to test also.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go on the coping ways for each of us. To talk about bipolar, when I listen to you, the interesting thing to me as a bipolar is that for you it's like more on all the time. When you are bipolar, you talk about cyclus, and the thing is that, well, if I talk about my own experience, I think you never know where it comes really from. In my case, I think that it was when I was a teenager, the pressure, exams, and so on, like triggered my latent bipolar, and then I went up hypomaniac, maniac, and then hospitalized, and then a big depression, and so on, which is the pattern of bipolar 1. But the thing is, when you get through these episodes, most of the time you will not accept your condition like this. You always think, and people around you think, that maybe it was a one-shot thing, you were young, and so on. If we relate to identity, the thing is that something happened. So, when you are taken by the police half naked and put in an hospital, it has an impact on your self-perception for sure. And then you might think, wow, am I crazy? But then after the first episode, and it's something that I hear often with other bipolar, you are still in a kind of a half denial of your condition. So if you put yourself to normal, you would think you in a way you would forget a bit about it, deny it, and then a relapse will come because you don't anticipate, and sometimes you also, if you had medication, you stop the medication, and so on, because you tend to remember also the nice parts of it. Hypomania and mania it's like taking drugs. It's huge, and it's a feeling when life is too normal that you want to find again, in a way. But when it comes to identity, it's something that you build, I think, through the episodes until the moment where you really accept the disorder, the pathology. And it took me a long time, because I was 39 when I really accepted that I had this problem, after 3 really big manias and losing a lot of things. I would say this, and only then, and it was very long after the diagnosis, it's then that I really started to know myself better and to build on myself, because until then it was a kind of a roller coaster with very calm periods in between, trying to fit the pattern of society, what is asked from you, but it wasn't really me, natural, and so it's like a sea snake. It's and since, I would say, like, this last episode, I I think I really became who I am, like my optimal, so to say, and all my self knowledge. So that's
Yeah.
that's the identity part, I would say. But um, Irina, uh, you were saying that it's pretty recent the diagnosis, and you are now working on new patterns. Can you tell a bit about now what you, from medication to therapy, what did you put in place to be better?
I started anti-anxiety medication in February, I think,
Hmm.
and they've been a life changer. Very similarly to Dimi, I have been refusing for many, many years to take meds because I've been in and out of therapy for 15 years. Um, and it's always been depression, 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 depression. Um, Now I'm realizing that depression is a inevitable part of BPD. So, but it was never a depressive disorder on its own. It was just part of BPD. So, but I did refuse to take the medications for very similar reasons to Jimmy because I thought, oh, what if I slow down? What if I'm not as productive? What if I gain weight? One of my biggest fears in my life. What if I gain weight? Um, and things got so bad last year that I actually asked to please be put on meds because it was just very bad. And honestly, I could not have imagined that my brain can be quieter. Because it's not
Mm.
like it's quiet, it's never gonna be quiet, but the way my head functions is there's always six, seven, eight, nine voices going in the same time, arguing with each other very, very loudly. And out of them, 99% are negative.
Mm.
Oh, you're slow, you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you're gonna lose the house, you're gonna lose your friends, blah, blah, blah. And the pills kind of made me be able to hear them but ignore them and kind of move, which is a big difference in just quality of life, just genuine daily quality of life because I hear it, but I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna listen to you now. I don't have the time. And then I move on. Well, before it would be so debilitating, like just makes me
Mm.
freeze or
Yeah.
or would send me in this state of dissociation where I won't remember 3 days of my life because
Mm.
I just switched myself off and went to do what had to be done. And then if you'd ask me what you did yesterday, I wouldn't remember.
Mm.
I would had
Interesting.
I would have
Yeah.
meetings at work for hours. I'd write project plans and I won't remember it. I just wouldn't be there. But yes, the pills definitely help. And therapy is mainly now focused on me. My therapist is mainly now focused on me understanding and accepting why my emotions are so extreme because they are very high and low compared to normal people.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of, she's trying to teach me to be more accepting of myself and kinder to myself and blah blah. I don't think I've gotten very far. But as I said, I've just maybe 3 months ago, I had a light bulb moment when I was like, oh, this is what this symptom means.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of going through
Yeah.
the motions of figuring things out. But I do have to say the dissociation is something I catch now because I
Yes.
do that a lot. And I don't know if you've ever noticed it in me. Um, but apparently I've become so good at it that people just don't see it. And very often I don't register that I'm doing it, and then I would register it several hours or days later. So now I'm much more capable of figuring that out and kind of bringing myself back into reality and, feeling the
Yeah.
feelings or.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
fact that you feel that you are in the right on the right path, because it's, of course, it takes time to change patterns. Uh, but if you trust your therapist and the medication and so on, does it give you a kind of the start of foundation which you can rely on?
I don't know. I can't say whether I'm on the right path or no. I think it's gonna take me a few years to kind of figure out the exact path. But what I think is very important is that I am probably for the first time in my life actually looking inwards and questioning where things
Yes,
come from,
you face it.
and facing it and addressing it and making these tiny attempts of self-care.
Yes.
Because when we're talking about superpowers, Michel, let's make it a bit happier now. I'm very empathic, right? So I'm the type of person that will go try to save the whole world.
Yeah.
I can feel people's emotions, frustrations, and I think I'm a good friend. I think I'm a person who is always there to help
You
people,
care,
and
and it's tangible that
yeah,
huh?
yeah, and I've used that as a defense as well for many years. Like, let me help you, so I don't have to think about
Yeah,
the big black hole in my chest.
But I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's a very important point for you also within that journey to figure out how to, I think any type of extreme anyway, even helping people, even empathy is something to be curbed if it really, yeah, if it's self-harming in a way. So, but yeah, I wonder how when we are together, we have a company together, just so when we
Also that.
have
Also
meetings,
that, yeah.
when we see each other, do you feel you're dissociating on and off with me? Is it something I would recognize?
With you, I don't think it happens anymore because I think that's another. Yeah, thanks for telling me. Sorry, I'm gonna say something else before I answer your question. My therapist was asking me the other day what was the biggest improvement that I have seen in the past year, or since I started therapy. So it's what, year and a half now. And I was telling her that besides therapy itself, because that really like helps me figure things out, it's the people that I found in my life. So you guys, Sasha, Afro, I've in this past year and a half, I've met people who don't judge me, who see me for who I am, accept me with my grumpiness and negativity and self-loathing. And it's probably the first time in my life that I feel like I'm surrounded by friends whom I fully trust and who don't judge me. And that's made a huge difference for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to follow that up by answering your question. I don't think I'd associate with you anymore because I'm not afraid that you're going to hate me or judge me or leave me anymore. I did in the beginning when
Yeah,
we first met, when we first started working together. But now I'm at a stage where I trust you pretty much blindly, so I don't do it anymore.
you're
Mm.
just not getting rid of me. That's more.
Yeah.
And you, Dimitri, how does it when we talk about coping with ADHD? Funny thing, I just when I Google it, I see a lot of things that it comes to avoid stress, sleep well, good diet,
Yeah,
these kind of things.
yeah, yeah, you're great. Routine is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Structure in life. Mm. Yeah, everything like ADHD kicks against everything that you should be doing to solve your ADHD, so that doesn't make it easy. What is easier maybe compared to you both is that solving at least a large part of the symptoms of ADHD is something that I could very easily manage with the pills I took, and so I didn't. Yeah, I don't believe it to be a very long journey. Even just life is a long journey, of course, but to managing your life with ADHD as much as it would be with borderline or bipolar because they are more behavioral. And so even though psychologically my ADHD is very much tied to my brain, whereas with some people it can be more physical. I do have tics, but I don't have like the athlete's ADHD. It is internal, it is my brain. So yeah, that is a big struggle, but what the pills did is a little bit like what Irina said. It makes you finally, like from the first pill on, finally feel like a normal person. And the contrast between what you've always known and suddenly thinking, oh, this must be what a normal person feels like, because this would make me behave much more like, and when we say normal people, you know what I mean. But it is the feeling you get, and I know a lot of ADHDers say the pills make them feel normal, and that's yeah, it's a funny observation. And what it does is it makes me able to work on tasks. It doesn't take away everything. It didn't take away my sense of forgetfulness. I think other people struggle a lot with ADHDers when they forget not only their names, but that they even exist. That is maybe a larger problem that's hard to solve, is that if I don't see it, if it's not in my sphere, it doesn't exist. Meaning I can completely forget about the existence of even people, and that can hurt people a lot, even though it's not something, I think, at least from what I've read, it's tied to the fact that if you don't make, like, people create memories with their brains, but if you don't have enough dopamine to, we're a bit like cats. If something is not strong or shocking, emotionally strong enough, especially when you're already a bit dulled, it just simply fails to create a memory for you. So people can tell me stories and be super excited, but if I don't, rehear them, redo them all the time, they just won't be there anymore. And that's, yeah, that can, yeah, be a bit difficult sometimes, but I've, yeah, just learned to cope with things.
Yeah.
When I got my diagnosis, I was already happy. I built my work, freelance work, which was more free. I love, like, my passion in work is to innovate, to always do something else, and to help people. Um, and I had already, when I spoke to the psychiatrist, I told him I don't want medication. I just want you to tell me what I can change about my life to make it better. But the handy thing about ADHD is a lot of ADHDers are able to explain within the finest details how they feel, why they feel, because there's a clarity, I think, attached to ADHD, which makes you perhaps less responsive to therapy, because every time I've been in therapy, I've been the therapist, more like, and but I could also like Excel sheet explain my feelings to the psychiatrist. And he told me, yeah, simply you've already done a lot. I wasn't unhappy, so I didn't go because I needed it. I just wanted to fine tune. But what I found in the medication was way more than I bargained for, and it changed it completely. I suddenly felt like I didn't before, that I could work with other people. I already did as a freelancer, but as a one-man army, I was always in and out of relations professionally, and I felt, yeah, people sometimes, when I get excited and hyper, people need medication after meeting me. So, yeah, I've always wanted to start my own thing, work with partners, with others, but I could never really take that step until I got on medication, and that instantly made me confident enough because I could regulate my moods better. I can, when I have a meeting at 4 in the afternoon, I get tired. I'm tired already. So instead of, being like this, I get hyper. And it's not a good time to meet with me. So, but now I know that I can take a pill an hour before and I'll be calmer, also listen more.
Mm.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's really changed a lot, and now I've started multiple companies because thanks to that.
Oh, I stop you on this because it's I think it's I want to go back to this what we can achieve through our conditions. Um, about medication and bipolar, um, uh, I'm pretty close from what Irina said about the benefits of having something which frames you. For me, it's lithium. I take it since I think 30 years, and things I accepted my condition, so to say. And the thing is that it's um, in a way well, it frames you, and at the same time it frees you because it helps you just not get all over the place like bipolar can really be. If you get into an hypomania, then the feeling is so huge, self-confidence, social, creative, changing the world, everything is possible and so on, but then you lose yourself most of the time, and in mania always. And then the medication, the acceptance of the medication, it creates this kind of I see it like, well, a square where it's a kind of a space where you can, well, be also, yeah, do normal stuff, but still, because it's not a waterproof square, you are also, you remain this person who used to be so high in the sky or so low. You take it with you, but you use it in a good way also to protect yourself. So I told it during one of the podcasts. I said, but a friend of mine, he drew once this square or circle and said, "Okay, stay there, please." And then you are at the top of your, yourself also socially. And I think I just have this square in my head constantly, but it's a self endorsed, embedded thing. So it's okay. It's the boundaries you need.
And I do think that your square is already quite a little, yeah, it allows, it's bigger than, I think some of the mania is maybe ever present with you, meaning that uh, you've always been viewed, at least by a lot of people, also to, be happy, be outgoing, social, and just, um, you already inspire people by just staying within your square. And I don't know if it is an influence from bipolar, um, uh, like chemically, or if it's something that you've been inspired by yourself to add on to you. But yeah, I think it comes with the benefit of creativity, of outside the box, inside the square thinking.
Yeah, no, probably, and I think but it also, I think the best thing you can reach, at least with bipolar, but I think it's true from other conditions, is when you have exactly the medication you need, not more, and the rest can be therapy, lifestyle, and it's a quest. Huh? I mean, Irina, you were saying that you are just starting with it, but the good thing is there is a point when okay, um, uh, I don't know, for me, the lifestyle means exercise, connection with nature, having the right rhythm, having the right space for creativity. It's a combination of things. Um, and that's what helps you to reach uh, not a compromise, not only the control, but a kind of balance, a good balance. I don't feel like compromising with myself. I feel like I do what I can, but I know where not to go because I've been there. There are no-go areas and so on. So it's also a self-made thing. And I think when you reach this balance, or when you've got the feeling of being, we were talking about what is the right dynamic of path, it's very pretty abstract, but I think the challenge is to reach this stage where you can give the best of your capabilities. And sometimes because we work together on several projects and so on, sometimes when I see you both and you tell someone when you two of you are talking to each other, I think nobody understands but you both. For instance, it's another language, and it's indicible, it's verbal whatsoever, but it's not to be understood by many people. For instance, which is great.
I think we have been friends for quite a short amount of time, but I think it was that fusionality and the fact that we understand each other on a level that not many people have. Because yeah, it can be a work meeting or anything, but I think we know how to the way that we express ourselves may be in a lot of situations difficult for people to absorb. We want to convey, especially well with ADHD, you want to convey all the information and just splatter it onto a board, and people should just follow and understand
Be
everything.
happy with it.
That's something
With borderline, it's context.
Yeah.
With borderline is context.
Yeah, I saw
Nothing
this.
exists outside of a context, and that
Yeah.
drives people insane.
Yeah.
But not him. He gets it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's two sides of the same coin. Is I cannot prioritize information, meaning, and I think that's also maybe tied to that forgetfulness. I can't be. I don't know anything until ADHD allows you to create a whole universe of information within a split second. Meaning that I'm never like I can be an expert in something. Actually, I'm not. No, I've forgotten everything. But as soon as I need it, I have my explosion, and then everything comes out, and then I need to convey it all if I want to, and I feel the need for people to understand the entire spectrum of my thoughts. With Irina, I don't have to because Irina has the same type of explosion, perhaps from a different side, but anything I could have thought of, she's thought of, and vice versa. So we don't need
vice versa,
to
yeah.
dispense with a lot of it. We can update each other on 15 projects in 3 minutes because we don't need context to create that context with each other.
Yeah.
We know the other one has already thought of it, and that's a very
That's a very interesting thing because it means that because well we know each other enough. I see that. I mean, I'm the older guy. I'm bipolar is different, but I think that the fact that we know what a mental health condition is, what you were referring to, Irina, that there is no judgment. There is just like a functioning, and how can we make the best out of it? And we sense when the others are tired or maybe like too much stress or whatsoever. In my case, you would sense if I was just a hypomaniac in 1 sec, of course, which is my protection as well. But I think that it's not only then controlling each other's, it's balancing each other's, and then you take the best of ideas, velocity, creativity, energy, and so on. That's what I don't want to promote our. It's not like.
I mean, we
I see.
can bottle them and start making a.
Yeah.
No, I think it's very special that what was I gonna say is that it's funny to see because we actually solve each other's hyperactivity in situations. When we have a meeting with someone else, I can go on for ages and you can see people's face drop, and then Irina comes in and she just ties it in a bow and
Yeah.
tells, but structured and short and in a way people will understand. And conversely, she also can sometimes go in every different direction. So I think the way that we then care for each other works a bit the same. He's more pedagogical than I am, but I think I can I do that more with text and designs and everything. I can summarize those, synthesize those, whereas she can verbally synthesize me, and
Yeah,
very helpful.
definitely. But I also want to go back to a point that Michel was saying that we do sense each other. Absolutely, I think we do. But I think for me, maybe even more importantly, I fear, I have no fear of telling either one of you, hey, I don't have space in my head for this right now. I can't.
Yeah,
And it's this, there will be no questions asked, nothing. I'm just gonna be told, okay, drop out of the call, see you whenever you're ready. That's gonna be it. Which I can't do with many people because
No.
I have built this persona of the helper and the
Mm.
solver and the strong one and the powerful one and la la la. So people kind of don't allow me to have a second.
mm,
And that's probably more important for me personally than you guys sensing me because I know you can sense me. But the fact that I can say, okay, pause, I can't.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just get, cool, talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
But
And it's
I
like,
wonder, is that it may be exacerbated by the fact that we have different types of disorders, but I think that's also because Michel and I have lived and met so many different people and had so many different experiences that is it because we relate, or is it because I mean we've seen people of all spectra, let's say, and now are comfortable with anything and also more caring about
Yeah.
we know what it means to need space, to be angry, to be so I wonder if it's if that
That's a good point, huh? And it's funny because when I was, let's say, preparing this podcast, I was also looking at well, superpower, like positive things about being borderline, ADHD, or not. And one thing we have absolutely in common is that you get through your highs, your lows, the walls, the struggles, and so on. You 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 build acceptance anyway, uh, and that's a great thing. Uh, and if you above this mutual acceptance, you work on the qualities, because I know you are context. It's always the big picture, and Dimitri is like the vision, the engine running, the energy, and so on. Um, uh, I think it's 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 important that when you talk about the workspace and so on, also for other people, that they, if there is this acceptance and the allow people to use their brains and qualities the way they can use them. Sometimes you cannot. Sometimes you I know there are meetings you are not there, or you because you cannot, and
important.
it's not a problem.
I think it's very important also for people to know maybe when it comes to us or to maybe at least Irina I believe, but especially to me is that even though in work I manage before my pills I was so fast that in one morning I could do a week's worth of work, and then I would completely fizzle out. I'd have I don't know, I have a burnout every day. That's why I'm quite burnout
so
resistant.
familiar.
Just every afternoon was burnout time, and then the next morning you begin again, or in the evening you wake up again. Now the
Yeah.
pills have spaced out all that energy over the span of days, but still we produce a lot. And I think the other side of that is that what takes a lot of energy isn't the actions we do themselves, it's the managing your brain throughout the day and
Yep.
constantly managing those mood swings and
Yeah.
when you have to be like this and when you have to be like
Yeah.
that. This is something I think a lot of people don't realize, which is why a lot of people like neurotypical people will generally give me tips about, yeah, if you have this problem, solve it like this. But it simply doesn't work like that, since they usually can't go deep enough or understand the fact that, going to sleep is not solved by just having a routine, because I cannot make a routine. That is not what, yeah, my brain will never allow me to make a routine, because I will lose all dopamine after the second time. Repetition is my biggest enemy. That if I have any phobia, it's repetition. So a structure is impossible in my brain, because I will, one, forget about it completely. I was very good at structuring things, but following the structures,
Mm.
making a planning, great, but following the planning, it's just that I will forget the planning ever existed 2 days later. And I think throughout the day, also the cycles Michel talked about, they're maybe much more close together. They're like a daily cycle.
Yeah.
I go through, in the morning I wake up, I have my coffee, which I shouldn't because it's an upper, so it put me to sleep. But I do anyway. I take my pill. I take some time I wake up later than most because otherwise I would never sleep. In the evening I wake up, so I sleep very late, usually around 3 or 4, and then I wake up at 10 or so, a bit earlier sometimes. And then I take my pill, and once it starts working, then I can really get into a hyper focus, which I never could before, and do that all day. Before, Irina probably, yeah, didn't meet me like that, but I was always the lazy one, since I never worked. I did my thing, and then I was done, and then I was tired for the rest of the day. Um, and now it's managed. Yeah, it's yeah, the medication also, but I think it's, yeah, everything always takes that much more energy, even though it feels like I can do things super fast. And you're constantly restructuring your brain throughout the day, and I think
Mm.
that's the most tiring bit.
That is such a good point, Jimmy, because I was trying to explain to my therapist the other day that just one simple day is already like 70 times more complicated for me, because I don't only go through the high and low, the depression and the hyper, but I also repetitively go through the symptoms,
Mm,
through dissociation, anger, self-punishment. So, if I don't know, if my lack of identity gets triggered and then I think I didn't do a good enough job either at work or personally, I would not eat that day. And then as a result, I'd get a headache. But then I'd convince myself that no, I'm fat because my lack of identity had triggered. And then the self harm comes in. And it's just this non stop thing that goes in here.
Mm.
And on top of that, you try to have a relationship and friendships and work and animals, and
Yeah.
it's exhausting. It's
It's
really
exhausting.
exhausting. And then the dissociation kicks, and then people are like, "What you mean
Yeah.
you don't remember we met yesterday?" And
Yeah.
there's just no space. Like I run out of boxes. It's just
Yeah.
there's
But
nothing.
it's funny. It's not funny, but for me, depending how I wake up, we have got a mood condition. So it can be that I wake up and it's like low, and I don't know why, because nothing changed, but it's low, and I have to manage the low, to take my head, keep my head above waters, which could overwhelm me if, like 20 years ago, and any young bipolar I meet, they are still tend to be droning, because uh, this, you have to manage this mood swings, and it's a day work as well. It's more or less heavy, um, but it's important for people to normal people, to understand how much work it takes for us to manage the engine, the machine,
Yeah.
Also,
and
you save the normal people as well. Sorry, Michel, but I think it's also props to the normal people around us for having the patience and the understanding and having kind of put the entire manual of how to handle us or treat
Mm,
us into their heads because
Yeah.
that's so not many people are that patient and understanding when
mm,
your brain tilts or yeah. So
No,
yeah.
but that's why we need to give. That's why we need to give them benefits. And when you talk about inclusion, I think what we just mentioned about okay, how to manage yourself is one thing. How to um, get to have the right rhythm, and it's still a challenge in companies, in in life anyway. But if society would reach this point of uh, acceptance, and acceptance is self-acceptance for the people just having the pathologies, but also the other people, and if we create the conditions to get the best out people with pathologies and so on, then you get the inclusion, because I still think that when it comes to, for instance, when it comes to, we were talking about intuition, sensing, and so on, which is something that I think we have this kind of high sensitivity. But when you talk about empathy, when you talk about creativity, and creativity, um, I think it's also different for each of us. Uh, but what I think that we we all navigate in waters, have intense emotions, which can be inspiring, uh, um, associative intelligence, and so on. They can lead to beautiful things.
mm,
The challenge is just to gather the conditions on a human level, on a agenda, schedule, rhythm level, to make it just a flow, and but
What I
I
do
think
think about that
it's
is
coming.
maybe the word intuition or intuitive is not the right one when it comes to ADHD. Associative intelligence, yes.
mm,
What I've always viewed as a problem with my intelligence is the lack of intuition, is the lack of feeling what, feeling how to handle a situation. It's always been very mathematical.
mm,
I think in that it only in symptom only. It overlaps a little bit with people with autism, for example. There are many, many symptoms that overlap there. I think it's always the calculating what to do, how to feel, how to so it's and I've always been if I was if my brother once told me that he was jealous of my intelligence, and I found that extremely weird because I was jealous of his intelligence. I told him that because he has a much quicker one. You cannot calculate faster
mm,
than intuition, and my brother knows how to instantly respond to situations based on pure feel and intuition, and always lacked that, and I think that's a very interesting comparison, and also shows that intelligence is very,
Yeah,
you know,
because
broad.
intuition is a word I read regarding borderliners, like a sixth
Mm.
sense. Do you recognize it, Irina, or is it?
what I've come to realize is that what people call intuition in borderlines is overthinking and trying to predict the situation and the feeling of the other person to avoid abandonment. So,
Mhm.
in the pure sense of intuition, I don't think I'm intuitive. I used to.
Mhm.
I used to, and now because I recognize my own pattern, I realize that a lot of my intuition is me computing for a split of a second. This person's face has changed. What
Mhm.
have I done to upset them? And
Mhm.
how can I comfort them so I avoid them leaving me? leaving me,
mm,
hurting, you name it.
yeah.
So it's definitely something that is helpful because it does make me people open up to me much faster because I somehow manage to understand what they need and how to talk to people and to react in situations, definitely. But it's not intuition in the pure sense of the word. It's that fear that it just makes you
Yeah.
read the room within seconds just to feel safe.
Yeah. And it's a kind. I know bipolar people who are hypersensitive. So sensitivity can be helpful, but I agree with you. The real intuition is when you really can feel and read in people's head and anticipate behaviors and so on. I think when you've got high sensitivity and so on, you everything tends to be like amplified or minimized. There is a distortion between the normal reality and your perception. And also, what happens? You were talking, Dimitri, about autism, the comorbidities which happen often, because you are not only one thing, you are more than that. They also tend to complexify the this
Yeah.
this whole
Well,
thing.
and autism and ADHD, even though they look very much alike, are not even closely related. ADHD really is a chemical thing. I'm not sure where autism stems. I know it's not the same cause, so usually it can be mixed. If autism is also triggerable, ADHD is from birth. That's very simple. When you get tested, they always test the way you were as a child, because it is just, if you didn't have any symptoms as a child, it's probably going to be something else. It's not something that triggers. I think big difference also.
Mm.
But
But I
yeah.
think with all three of us when it comes to origins, because
Mm,
one is at birth, one triggers, and one develops.
mm.
And
The
that is so
ADHD
interesting
all
also.
develops, and it's at birth, but I think there's been so much research, but they still haven't completely figured out what they used to just think, okay, low dopamine levels, and it's true in a way. But what it also does is that it throughout the years, the what is happening makes your brain evolve differently. So
Hmm,
it's a mix of that from birth and development. So I think it is very influenceable,
interesting.
not a fixed thing. It is, they have found more recently that, yeah, it's not just that, it's the way then that the brain is going to grow or not grow. That yeah. So I can't wait till I'm 80.
Hmm,
Yeah. For bipolar, it will be genetics seem to play an important role, and w- it's well or not triggered, but uh, my observation is that anyway you cannot say that you are cured, for instance,
hmm,
and for sure you develop yourself. Uh, it's also the question: are you bipolar? Do you have bipolar? But actually, it's so entwined that you develop yourself in function of your disorder. So in a way, you become part of it. Um, but the I would say that the good thing is any way that we can talk about it, because my next point was about the sharing about disorders and helping also people with disorders. um, Maybe a word about it, Irina, in which way the interaction with others um uh, helps you, frees you. um, when
I
we talk.
don't really talk about it that much with people that are Like, I generally don't talk about the disorder that much, not even with you guys.
No.
Um, I guess that's partly because it's very new for me, so I'm kind of still trying to decide where the disorder finishes and I begin on or vice versa. I'm kind of still
Mhm.
in this situation that Michel just talked about. Am I bipolar or a do I happen to have bipolar? Sorry, borderline. Um, and
Mm. Yeah, because I
but
was you had ADHD as well, but maybe
yes, apparently they're
yeah.
comorbid, but I'm seeing the
Comorbidities.
yeah, they're comorbid, but I'm seeing the psychiatrist again in January, so we'll see. Mm,
I
because
have recognizable in people, and some have like a friend of mine, Judith. You know her, Michel.
Yes.
He has also struggle with that's not struggle, she's also always been hyper and a little bit like me. Whether she has ADHD or not doesn't really matter, but I think since I mentioned that my story, just
mm,
sharing my story has with her, but also with a few others, led to them going to see their GP. To I think the GP is the best, is just saying, okay, I have this problem. They're here for mental help as well, and then you know hoping to get an appointment with the right people to help you solve your problem. And so I think just telling your story is important if you meet people who are struggling, and if you recognize some of the symptoms, and not diagnosing them, but saying, okay, maybe ask. A lot
Yeah.
of people are too afraid to.
I think what I do very much in my job, and that is part of my job as somebody who works in international education, like that is just something that happens. I don't talk about my specific issue or disorder or superpower, whatever you want to call it, but I definitely can see when people struggle with
Yes.
mental issues. So I do that. I do advise my students who come from different cultures where mental health support is not really accepted.
Mm.
I do encourage my students, okay, go see someone, speak to your GP. Even if you speak to a classmate or to me, just try to take it off your chest, try to hear another perspective. Like that is definitely something I do. And I do see it helping my students. Um, I think just within the context of my job and my relationship with my colleagues, it's not just something that I can do for myself.
No. But I think it's also a good way to share with others. I think the best therapy, because it's kind of a reflection of uh, okay, you see that something is a symptom or story,
Mm.
a journey is. Oh, there are so many, like touching points, and I also think that it's one of the most beautiful things when you can help someone, if you are a little bit further in the process to get better. And I agree with you. It doesn't even need to be exactly the same pathology, but you can hear about uh, any other pathology. And I feel that there are more and more spaces where we can just open about it. When I see, compared to like 20 years ago, you didn't have platforms, podia to express yourself. Now you've got much more. Um, and I also think that it's it's important not to talk about the managing your disorder, but also just the bright side of it, and not like being too uh, uh, seeing it through pink glasses. But you can achieve this, uh, and it requests maybe this, and if you bring it on the workspace or any space, I think it's the best way to and work on inclusion and also tackle the stigma thing.
Yeah, well, I think anybody, whether you link your problems to a disorder or no, anybody will always have mental hurdles to overcome. And what's really helped me is to always think in solutions. Well, I'm lucky because I like problems, and I'm also lucky because I get very tired of myself for being low or morose, or I do have a depressive gene, but it never lasts long because I just after 2 days I'm like, Jesus, just do something about it because you're not going to stay like this, you know? So I do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's I think that solution drivenness, if you can accept your own problems and recognize them, even if you can't recognize them, go and find ways to recognize them. I'm always like, there will never be a problem that you cannot solve, because if you don't even know where to start, then find somebody who will help you start. It goes, you can go into go back into just the root of what you need. And I think that's very much the way my brain is also structured. If you can, it's like ChatGPT, using ChatGPT. If ChatGPT cannot solve it, ask it to solve it, to make it solve it, instead of going to think, how can I make it solve it
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, it's
And
like the reverse behavior. In bipolar, what works is that you do the opposite of what you might do regarding your energy level. Like, oh, I feel well, I have to go out and meet people, more people, and have this project, blah, blah, blah. No, when you feel it coming, you just sit on the sofa, wait a bit, and if you're down, exactly the same. What you mentioned, I relate totally to it. Like, I don't feel well enough, then I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to see people. I'm going to, and then it comes. So, but these kind of things, tips, you get them when you share with people. And actually, I saw this. This what we're talking about in our three pathologies, advised as being a coping thing. Like you 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 go for what you wouldn't maybe look for in the first place. And yeah, that's
yeah, I think that's very different from ADHD. Maybe I think the most important thing is to accept that you are the way you are, and that you will always you will not be able to change everything about you, even though you would like to, and then just start building solutions from there. So you have to set or identify the things you cannot change, and then change everything around, or adapt your situation to accommodate that, and maybe compromise here and there, or sacrifice
yeah.
something. If you know you're a certain way and you want to to go to reach a certain point, uh, yeah, I think it's sometimes very difficult for people to, because they imagine a world that they would feel would bring them happiness. It's not always that, but at least it's good to have a goal. But usually that also involves changing yourself, or doing things that are impossible, actually. Um, if people around you cannot accept you for who you are, there won't be much happiness found in surrounding yourself with those people.
Mm-mm.
But instead of trying to change yourself to accommodate a situation, of course you'll be working on yourself your whole life, but I don't see that as a way to make yourself, feel comfortable. So,
Irina, what do you think about it?
I think it's
Because
a mix. I think it's a mix because in my specific case, there's a lot of behaviors and patterns that I'm gonna have to change. It's just what it is. Um, but I also definitely think that, and looking back now from this age and with this understanding, I have entertained people whom I shouldn't have entertained. But I think that is true for anyone, including the neurotypical people. It's just like we tend
yeah.
to want to please people. I
mm,
think it's just a little bit more pronounced with us because we have this extra processing that goes on,
mm,
and maybe we're a little bit more self doubting because of our brains. And I think where the cutoff point comes is, like, I hope at one point in the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years, I'll be able to manage my symptoms better, right? But I'm also very aware that they're never gonna go away. This is gonna be something that is gonna be permanent, and it's gonna be a daily battle from here till the rest of my life.
Yes.
And I guess what matters is that the person's people around me would accept and understand that part. That it's not fixable. It's not a cold that you take paracetamol and it goes away. It is something that is gonna stay. Episodes are gonna happen. I will lose control of my emotions, and it will continue happening.
Well, that's what I mean.
And
Those
that should be
situations
okay.
and you can change. Like like behavioral patterns, you can change. So that wasn't what I was aiming for. And I think if you have a chance to work on them, then yeah, definitely do it. And I think not only is it a good to be surrounded by people who accept you, I think the people who accept you also make you turn into, make you change. They help you change. A lot of your personal development is based on the people that you interact with. They shape your identity also. I don't think we shape our identity simply by ourselves. You can tell often when somebody needs a specific type of person to improve their mental state. I think we can all recognize the situation. Like, some people need to find somebody to relate to, or somebody who's gonna badger them into realization, and even if it's not yourself, you can imagine. But you always imagine it to be a new person who brings that influence, since there's just some things that you yeah will have a hard time changing on your own.
So we have to. It's important the context and the. Actually, it's important to build this kind of. You don't like repetition, but this kind of ecosystem, because I say it often.
I forgot about
Put yourself in the right with the right people, right mindset, and so on. Helps a lot.
that.
Do you guys, borderliners, ADHD, do you have humor?
No.
No, that's what I thought. And you, neither. So
No,
Yes. Well, humor is my defense mechanism. So
same.
I use sarcasm. I diffuse situations through humor, and I think humor is very important because it allows me to use that honesty I was talking about and that brutal openness, but I'm able to convey things in a way that people would accept it when I need to, because it's turned into something I need to
it's
do is
packaged.
to tell the truth. But I use humor for that, and I also use humor as a way to escape situations. Um, that doesn't have any bearing on whether I'm funny or not. That's very subjective. But yeah, humor does.
Okay. You,
And
Irina?
Yeah, I definitely.
I'm
I
sure
I
you can be very
use
funny.
I use self-depreciating humor always. It helps me feel safe, and it helps me keep people at
Yeah.
an arm's length.
Okay.
Whether I'm funny or not, that's a very different thing.
No,
But
no, that's
yeah, I absolutely use humor as a
yeah. It's a kind of
defense.
protection. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to wrap up. Uh, it's not humor, but it's Dimitri. It's a metaphor. Um, when once I interviewed a known general of the U.S. Army, a bipolar who wrote a book, who does conferences, is prominent guy, and he was talking about his struggle against his bipolar, and I asked him, General, my general, uh, do you make love or war with your bipolar? And he said, I make love with my bipolar, which is the right answer, because what we're talking about is that we are we're talking about a battle among disorders, but we are talking, I think, pretty much about embracing our disorders to be able to make the best out of it. So I don't know. This was more like a battle in the maybe hip hop spirit. There are only winners, in my opinion. It's a very politically correct thing to say, but I would like to thank you guys for sharing about these conditions, and yeah, I think we said a lot, and thank you for this.
Thank you for having us.